For thousands of years, humans moved from place to place. They hunted animals, they gathered plants, they followed the seasons, never staying in one place for long. But then, something changed. The ice began to melt. The world became warmer. New plants began to grow in the same places each year. People noticed. They no longer had to chase food. Food could grow where they stayed. This was the beginning of a new way of life. Some families chose to stop moving. They built simple shelters from mud, wood, and stone. They began planting seeds and waiting for them to grow. They raised animals instead of hunting them. These small choices changed everything. They gave people more time to think, to build, to live together. They stayed in one place, and that place slowly became a home. This was not easy. There were new problems: weather, disease, and danger. Farming was not invented overnight. It began slowly, by accident. Early humans noticed that seeds left behind sometimes grew into plants. Wild grains, fruits, and vegetables returned to the same places each year. People began saving seeds and planting them near their shelters. Over time, they learned which plants gave more food, which grew faster, and which could survive dry seasons. Farming changed everything. For the first time, food could be stored. People made clay pots, baskets, and underground storage pits. Now, they could feed more people, even in bad weather. This gave them power over hunger. But farming also came with problems. Crops failed. Insects came. Sometimes there was too much rain. Sometimes there was none. But people didn't stop. They learned. They tried again. Soon, people grew more than they needed. Early farming villages needed one thing more than anything else: water. Rivers gave life. They brought fresh water to drink, to wash, and to grow crops. They also brought animals, fish, and birds. Every day, people came to the rivers with pots, tools, and animals. Some built their homes nearby. Others dug small canals to carry water into their fields. The rivers also gave something else: safety. When people gathered near water, they stayed close. Families became groups. Groups became villages. Over time, those villages grew into the first towns. The most important civilizations were born by rivers: the Nile in Egypt, the Tigris and Euphrates in Mesopotamia, the Indus in South Asia, the Yellow River in China. These were not just water sources, they were lifelines. With rivers, people could grow more food, raise more animals, and trade with other groups. Boats moved goods faster. Ideas spread more easily. Languages began to grow. The rivers shaped everything: homes, roads, farms, and lives. Without rivers, there would be no cities. As people began to stay in one place, they needed shelter, homes that would last through wind, rain, and time. At first, they used what was around them: mud, stones, wood, grass. They mixed mud with straw and let it dry under the sun to make bricks. With these, they built walls. Roofs were made from sticks, leaves, and animal skins. These homes were small, one room, sometimes two. Inside there was a fire, a place to sleep, and space for storing food or tools. Doors were made of woven grass or wood. Windows were tiny to keep out the heat or cold. But it wasn't just homes that changed. Tools became more advanced. People shaped stones to make sharper blades. They used bones and wood to craft farming tools, baskets, and weapons. Every tool was made by hand. Slowly, people began to specialize. Some became good builders. Others made tools or pottery. Villages grew not just in size but in skill. These simple homes and handmade tools were the building blocks of civilization. As the sun rises, the village begins to move. There is no alarm, no schedule, only the rhythm of life. A mother carries water from the river. A child chases a chicken through the dust. A father shapes a wooden handle for a farming tool. Behind them, smoke rises from a small fire where someone cooks breakfast: boiled roots, crushed grains, dried meat. In these first villages, life is simple, but full. People wake early to farm, gather herbs and check on animals. Others sit near their homes, weaving, carving, grinding grain between stones. The sound of children playing echoes between mud walls. Laughter, work, silence, all mixed together. By sunset, the fires return. Families sit close. Food is passed around in stone bowls. An elder tells a story, perhaps true, perhaps not, as the children listen with wide eyes. At night, the village becomes still. Dogs bark in the dark. Somewhere, an owl calls. But the people sleep safely, knowing that tomorrow will come again. This was not a kingdom. There were no rulers here, just life, honest, quiet, and shared. As life became more stable, people began asking questions. Why does the sun rise? Why do crops grow? Why does a storm destroy one village and spare another? They had no science, only wonder. And from that wonder, belief was born. People looked at the sky, the trees, the rivers. They saw power in fire, mystery in the stars. Some believed spirits lived in stones, animals, or the wind. Others believed ancestors watched from beyond. To honor these unseen forces, people made offerings, food, shells, handmade figures. At first, they left them near trees or caves, but later, they built special places, stone circles, raised mounds, sacred fires. These were the world's first temples, simple, small, but full of meaning. Elders became spiritual guides. They told stories of creation and balance. These stories became traditions. Traditions became culture. Belief gave people comfort. In death, in disaster, in the unknown, it brought the village together. Around the fire they prayed, not with fear, but with hope. The gods they created did not shape the world, but they shaped the way people lived in it. As villages grew, so did problems. Who would get the best land? Who would settle arguments? Who would decide what was fair? At first, people solved things through talking. Elders, respected for their age and wisdom, helped guide decisions. But over time, rules began to form, not written but remembered. Simple things: share the water, don't take from another's fire, protect the weak. Some villages chose leaders, not for power but for peace. A good hunter, a skilled builder, a trusted voice. These early leaders were not kings. They were keepers of balance. Before writing, stories lived in memory. Knowledge was passed from mouth to ear, from elders to children. But memory fades, details change. And so people searched for a way to hold on to what mattered. They began with pictures, marks in clay, shapes carved in stone, lines scratched into wood or bone. Each symbol meant something: a person, an animal, the sun, a harvest. At first, these marks told simple things: who owned a field, how much grain was stored, what season came next. But soon, these marks began to tell more: a hunt, a flood, a birth, a death. This was the birth of writing. No longer did memory live only in the mind. Now it could live forever. In clay tablets, on cave walls, in stone. Stories became records, records became history. And history gave humans something no other creature had: the power to learn from the past. In every mark was a voice, a thought, a life. Writing did not just change how people remembered, it changed who they could become. For thousands of years, people lived in small villages, growing, building, learning. But slowly, something greater began to form. From clusters of homes came roads. From shared fires came marketplaces. From temples and trade came power. The first cities rose, not overnight but brick by brick. In Mesopotamia, people built walls around their homes. In Egypt, they carved monuments from stone. In the Indus Valley, streets were planned and water flowed through channels. These were not just places to live, they were centers of knowledge, religion, art, and rule. In cities there were workers, farmers, potters, priests, traders, and rulers. Roles were clear, work was organized, ideas spread faster. With writing, people kept records. With trade, they shared goods. With rules, they kept peace. But life was not easy. Cities faced floods, fires, and famine, yet the people stayed. They rebuilt. They adapted. From wild land to village, from village to city. This was the true beginning of human civilization. And though we live in towers today, surrounded by machines, it all began with one fire, one family, one shared idea. We are stronger together.